What if everything you believe about the ideal penis size was built on a myth so common that most men never question it, yet it shapes their confidence more than any real biological fact? Let me ask you directly, has the number 7 inches ever made you doubt your own body, even for a moment? If it has, you're not alone, but scientifically, that number has nothing to do with what women actually prefer. As a urologist, I see the same misunderstanding over and over again. Men assume women want something larger, longer, or extreme because that's what culture, movies, adult content, and jokes online have repeated for decades. But none of that reflects what happens in real relationships, real intimacy, or real female anatomy. The 7-inch myth didn't come from medical literature. It came from exaggeration, comparison, and unrealistic visual references. When men start believing that anything under 7 inches is not good enough, they're measuring themselves against something that was never designed to represent reality in the first place. Scientifically, an erection is valuable not because of length, but because of function. A penis needs to create pressure, maintain blood flow, and fit the anatomy of the woman comfortably. And female anatomy simply does not favor extreme length. Most women's internal depth ranges between 3.5 and 4.5 inches during relaxation, and up to around 5.5 inches during arousal. Anything far beyond that depth can cause discomfort, not pleasure. So, the fear of being under 7 inches is not based on science, it's based on a cultural illusion. And understanding this is the first step for any man who wants to know what women truly appreciate, not what internet myths insist on repeating. Before we continue, check that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the scientific truth behind male sexual performance. And comment the word science if you prefer facts over myths, or myth if you once believed the 7-inch idea but now want real information. If you've ever wondered what women actually prefer, not what men assume they prefer, the answer isn't found in opinions, jokes, or insecurity. It's found in data. And scientific research on female sexual preference is far more consistent than most men expect. When researchers interview large groups of women, using measured models or detailed questionnaires, a very clear pattern appears: the majority do not favor extreme length. They choose sizes that fit comfortably within the natural limits of their anatomy. One of the most cited studies, conducted at UCLA and published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, asked hundreds of women to select the size they considered most satisfying for long-term partners and for occasional encounters. The numbers surprised men, but not urologists. The preferred range stayed around the average, not above it. Women reported valuing comfort, fullness, and fit, not excessive length. And when asked what mattered most for pleasure, they consistently mentioned girth, not length. Another study from Indiana University found that women associated sexual satisfaction with emotional connection, technique, rhythm, and communication far more than with size. When size mattered, it was usually for confidence or perceived masculinity, not physical pleasure. Male insecurity often magnifies the importance of something women themselves rarely focus on. In fact, many women express discomfort with larger lengths because of internal sensitivity, cervical impact, or restricted movement during certain positions. What men think is an advantage is frequently the opposite. Understanding this shifts the entire conversation. The male perspective is often shaped by comparison, the female perspective is shaped by experience. If this helped you see the difference between male myth and female reality, take a moment to like this video. It allows more men to access information based on science, not pressure or doubt. If you truly want to understand what creates physical pleasure for a woman, you need to stop thinking only about length and start looking at anatomy. The vagina is not a hollow tube that responds the same way along its entire depth. It is a layered, responsive structure with specific sensitive regions, most of which exist in the first few inches. This is why girth, not length, often determines whether the experience feels pleasurable, neutral, or uncomfortable. Inside the vaginal canal, the majority of nerve Endings are concentrated in the outer third. This means that deeper penetration does not necessarily equal more sensation. In fact, the deeper sections contain far fewer nerves. Going too far activates the cervix, which is sensitive not in a pleasurable way, but in a protective one. Too much length pushes against this area and can trigger discomfort or pain. Women often describe the ideal experience as a feeling of fullness rather than depth. Fullness is created by girth, the ability of the penis to stretch the outer walls and stimulate the nerve-rich regions. This is why a man with average length but good thickness can produce more pleasure than a man who is simply long. Another overlooked factor is angle. Because the vaginal canal tilts upward, extremely long lengths can bump against the cervix even in simple positions. Meanwhile, a penis within the average range allows smoother movement, better rhythm, and consistent stimulation without discomfort. This leads to better coordination and stronger physical response from the woman. So when men obsess over length, they are focusing on the least important metric. Women, meanwhile, pay attention to comfort, adaptability, and the sensations created in the outer part of the canal. This is anatomy, not opinion. To understand why the ideal size differs so much between imagination and reality, you need to see how the female body is designed to respond during intimacy. Women do not experience pleasure from depth alone, but from a combination of anatomical contact points, muscular rhythm, and the ability to move comfortably without tension. The vaginal canal, for example, is surrounded by pelvic floor muscles that contract and release during arousal. These muscles hug the penis and create pressure. But this mechanism works best with sizes that allow full movement without hitting sensitive internal boundaries. Excessive length interrupts this rhythm by forcing the body to protect itself. When the cervix is touched too aggressively, the pelvic muscles tighten, not in pleasure, but in defense. This instantly reduces comfort and sensation. Women often report that they prefer sizes that allow them to relax into the experience. Relaxation increases lubrication, expands the canal, and enhances sensitivity. If the penis is too long, the body cannot maintain this relaxed state, and the pleasure curve drops. This is why, in multiple scientific studies, women consistently preferred moderate lengths paired with comfortable girth. Another factor is position. Certain positions amplify pressure against the anterior vaginal wall, where the G-spot area responds best. For these positions, overly long lengths can limit thrusting, reduce control, and force the couple to adjust constantly to avoid discomfort. Meanwhile, a penis within the average range allows smooth, rhythmic motion, something women associate far more with pleasure than size itself. And perhaps the most overlooked part, women value consistency. They prefer a partner whose size allows a wide range of sensations and movements, not one that forces limitations or constant caution. Science shows that too big restricts possibilities, while adequate with good girth enhances them. In other words, the female body rewards comfort, rhythm, and adaptability, not extremes. When men worry about size, they almost always overlook the factor that science consistently identifies as far more important for female satisfaction: performance. Not performance in the exaggerated sense often portrayed in media, but performance is a biological process: rhythm, control, duration, and the ability to maintain stable pressure inside the vaginal canal. These qualities depend far more on blood flow and stamina than on centimeters. A penis of any average length can create high levels of pleasure if the man has good erectile rigidity. Rigidity determines how well the penis can push, maintain direction, and stimulate the nerve-rich outer third of the vagina. In fact, studies show that erectile firmness contributes more to female satisfaction than length. A smaller penis with excellent rigidity outperforms a longer one with poor blood pressure. Technique also plays a critical role. The combination of controlled thrusting, pelvic rhythm, and coordinated stimulation of the clitoral region produces significantly more pleasure than penetration alone. Women consistently report that orgasms result from multiple forms of stimulation working together, not from deeper penetration. Another finding from sexual health research is that predictability matters. Women tend to feel more arousal when the movement is smooth and continuous, not interrupted by discomfort, repositioning, or the need to be cautious because the penis is too long. A moderate size allows more freedom of motion, better angles, and more consistent stimulation. The truth is simple: a man who understands timing, pressure, and technique becomes far more satisfying than a man who relies solely on size. Men fixate on centimeters, women focus on sensations. Performance is built, not measured. One of the most misunderstood aspects of what women appreciate in a partner is how much of their experience depends on factors far beyond physical measurements. While men tend to fixate on numbers, women evaluate something much broader: emotional safety, confidence, communication, and the ability to create an environment where arousal can actually build. Without these elements, even a man with ideal anatomy fails to generate satisfying intimacy. Women's arousal is strongly influenced by psychological state. When a woman feels safe, understood, and connected, her pelvic floor muscles relax, blood flow increases, and sensitivity heightens. These physiological changes make the entire experience more pleasurable, completely independent of size. Meanwhile, anxiety, tension, or self-conscious behavior from a partner can shut these responses down instantly. Confidence is also a major factor, but not the exaggerated or aggressive kind. Women respond to a calm, grounded confidence, the type that comes from a man who understands his body, doesn't compare himself to others, and focuses on connection rather than performance. In multiple studies, women ranked confidence and communication far higher than physical attributes. Another overlooked point is adaptability. Women value partners who adjust to their rhythm, pressure, and comfort level. This creates a sense of cooperation rather than friction. A man of any size who listens, observes, and responds becomes far more satisfying than a man who is physically larger but inattentive. Research also shows that emotional connection amplifies physical sensation. When a woman feels cared for, her body enters a state of deeper relaxation and responsiveness. Her brain releases more oxytocin, her pelvic blood flow strengthens, and her pleasure threshold increases, all because of emotional context. Not size. Men often believe they're being judged on length. Women are judging presence. To separate myth from reality, you also need to understand what urologists actually classify as normal, average, below average, or above average. And here is where the science becomes impossible to argue with: the male population follows a predictable biological curve. Most men fall within a very narrow range, and the extremes, both very large and very small, are statistically rare. Across dozens of studies worldwide, the average erect penis length falls between 5.0 and 5.5 inches, with a girth of 4.5 to 5.0 inches. These numbers appear again and again, regardless of country, ethnicity, or measurement method. Around 85% of men fall close to this range, meaning the overwhelming majority are far below the mythical 7 inches that culture promotes. Urologically speaking, a penis is considered within normal range even at sizes significantly below 7 inches. Clinical concern only begins when measurements fall below 4 inches erect, and even then, function, not size, is the determining factor. A man with 4.5 or 5 inches can have excellent erections, strong performance, and complete sexual satisfaction with a partner. On the opposite end, extremely large penises, the ones men assume women desire, often cause discomfort, limited movement, and reduced sexual flexibility. Many women in scientific surveys report preferring medium or slightly above average, not because of appearance, but because it allows consistent pleasure without pain. From a medical standpoint, the obsession with being larger than average has no foundation. Sexual satisfaction depends on blood flow, nerve response, technique, and emotional connection, not exceeding a numeric threshold. Women appreciate what feels good, not what looks impressive on a ruler. When you understand the real biological curve, you stop comparing yourself to unrealistic standards and start focusing on what truly matters for performance. If you stayed with me until the end of this video, it shows you're genuinely interested in understanding the science behind sexual performance, not the myths that create unnecessary insecurity. Before you leave, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the next videos in this series, each one designed to bring clarity, confidence, and real medical knowledge to men's health. Since you reached the final minute, comment one word below: reality. It tells me you're ready to base your confidence on facts, not on numbers that were never meant to define you. If this video helped you see your body and your performance from a scientific perspective, take a moment to like it. It helps this information reach other men who deserve the same level of truth. And your next step is already waiting. The video appearing on your screen continues this conversation and goes even deeper into what truly influences male sexual performance. Watch it now and keep strengthening your understanding and yourself.